I still remember the exact moment my heart broke. The ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers. Waiters carried silver trays through a sea of expensive suits and designer gowns. It was my son's company's annual gala, and nearly 300 people had gathered to celebrate another record-breaking year. I had spent nearly 30 years raising my children, supporting my husband through difficult times, and putting everyone else's dreams ahead of my own. That night, I thought I was finally going to see my son proudly introduce me to the world. Instead, he laughed. "Mom? She's just a housewife." The people around us chuckled politely. My smile froze. Then my son Daniel added something even worse. "Trust me, she wouldn't understand anything we talk about here." The laughter grew louder. I felt every eye in the room land on me. At 58 years old, I had never felt so small. I wanted the floor to open beneath my feet. But what happened next would change everything. Because less than an hour later, the CEO himself would walk across that ballroom, look directly at me, and say words that left the entire room speechless. "Good evening, ma'am. We've been hoping you'd attend." At that moment, I had no idea why. And neither did my son. 3 months earlier, everything had seemed normal. Daniel was 32, successful, and rising quickly through the ranks at a major technology company. I was proud of him. Maybe too proud. Whenever friends asked about my children, I couldn't stop smiling. "Daniel works for one of the biggest firms in the state." My husband Richard would always laugh. "You sound like you're the one getting promoted." I suppose I was. Every achievement of my children felt like my own. After all, I'd spent decades helping them reach those dreams. I had left college after my second year when Richard lost his job. I worked nights. I babysat. I cleaned houses. Later, when Daniel was born, I became a full-time mother. I never regretted it. Not once. At least, not until recently. The first clue appeared during Sunday dinner. Daniel barely looked at me. He spent most of the evening texting. Whenever his phone buzzed, he smiled. When I asked who it was, he quickly locked the screen. "Work." His answer came too fast. Something felt off. Then his sister Emma noticed it too. "You're acting weird." Daniel laughed. "Big project." But his eyes avoided mine. That night, after everyone left, Emma lingered behind. "You noticed it too, didn't you?" I nodded. "He seems distant." Emma frowned. "More than distant." I didn't know it then, but that conversation would be the beginning of months of confusion. Over the following weeks, Daniel changed. He stopped calling. Missed birthdays. Skipped family lunches. Sometimes he'd disappear for entire weekends. When I asked where he'd been, his answers never matched. Chicago. Then later he'd accidentally mention Denver. The stories kept changing. Richard tried calming me down. "He's busy." But even he sounded uncertain. Then came the phone calls. One evening Daniel visited unexpectedly. While we sat in the kitchen, his phone rang. The moment he saw the screen, his face changed. He stepped outside. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. But the kitchen window was open. I heard him whisper. "No. She can't know yet." My stomach tightened. A minute later he added. "I'm handling it." Then he noticed me watching. His expression hardened. The call ended immediately. That night I barely slept. Who was he talking about? Why couldn't she know? Why was he hiding things? Weeks later, another clue appeared. A receipt. Daniel left his jacket at our house. When I hung it in the closet, a folded receipt slipped from the pocket. It showed a payment of nearly $6,000. Private consulting services. I stared at the paper. Daniel had never mentioned any consulting business. When I asked him about it later, he snatched the receipt away. "It's nothing." Nothing? $6,000 wasn't nothing. The more defensive he became, the more suspicious I felt. Soon even Emma was worried. I think he's hiding something. Richard sighed heavily. Maybe he's in trouble. I feared something worse. Another woman. A secret life. Debt. Anything seemed possible. Then one afternoon I saw something that shattered me. I was shopping downtown when I spotted Daniel entering an upscale restaurant. He wasn't alone. A distinguished older man greeted him warmly. They shook hands. Then hugged. Daniel looked happier than I'd seen him in months. I followed them inside. Not close enough to hear. Just enough to watch. For 2 hours they talked. Laughed. Shared documents. When Daniel finally left, he never noticed me sitting in the corner. But I noticed something. The older man handed him an envelope. Daniel slipped it into his briefcase. My heart sank. Why would my son hide meetings like this? Why lie? Why keep secrets from his family? That evening I confronted him. Who was the man? The color drained from his face. What man? The man from the restaurant. Silence. Then anger. You followed me? The question itself felt like an answer. I knew then he was hiding something. I just didn't know what. And before long, I would discover something even worse. Something that would make me question whether my own son was ashamed of me. But the truth behind those secrets was far more painful than I could imagine. And it would all explode at the company gala. The night of the company gala began with excitement. It ended with humiliation. And before it was over, I became almost certain my own son was betraying me. As Richard and I entered the grand ballroom, Daniel barely acknowledged us. Mom, Dad, glad you made it. His words sounded rehearsed. Cold. Distracted. Then he immediately turned back toward a group of executives. I stood there holding my purse, feeling strangely out of place. Emma noticed it too. He couldn't spare 30 seconds? I forced a smile. He's busy. But deep down, I felt something cracking. For months, Daniel had been pulling away. The secret phone calls. The mysterious meetings. The unexplained expenses. The lies. Every clue pointed in the same direction. And I was terrified of where it was leading. An hour later, I found myself standing beside a table of senior managers. One woman asked politely, "So, what do you do?" Before I could answer, Daniel laughed. The sound sliced through me. Mom? She's just a housewife. Several people smiled awkwardly. I felt my face burn. Then came the second blow. Trust me, she wouldn't understand all this corporate stuff. The group chuckled. Someone quickly changed the subject. But the damage was done. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. 30 years. 30 years of sacrifices. 30 years of putting my family first. Reduced to 2 words. Just a housewife. I excused myself and walked toward the balcony. Tears blurred the city lights below. Richard found me there. He didn't mean it. I laughed bitterly. He absolutely meant it. My husband didn't argue. Because he knew I was right. A few minutes later, Emma joined us. She was furious. I can't believe him. Neither could I. The son I had raised would never have spoken that way years ago. Something had changed. Something was poisoning the relationship between us. And I was determined to find out what. Back inside, Daniel was nowhere to be found. Then I saw him. He slipped through a side door. The same older man from the restaurant followed behind. My pulse quickened. Without thinking, I followed them. The hallway beyond the ballroom was quiet. Their voices echoed from around the corner. I stopped before they could see me. What about the documents? The older man asked. They're almost ready, Daniel replied. And your mother? A painful silence followed. Finally Daniel answered. Not yet. My heart dropped. Not yet? Not yet what? The older man lowered his voice. You can't hide this forever. Daniel sighed heavily. I know. I backed away before they noticed me. My hands were shaking. Every fear I'd been carrying suddenly felt real. Whatever Daniel was doing involved me. He had lied for months. And now another man was helping him. When I returned to the ballroom, I could barely think. The clues replayed endlessly in my mind. The envelope. The receipts. The secret meetings. The whispers. The lies. Everything fit together. Everything. Except one thing. Why? Why would my son hide something from me? The answer arrived 20 minutes later. And it shattered me. Emma approached carrying her phone. Mom. Her voice trembled. What is it? She hesitated. I found something. On the screen was a public business filing. A new company. Recently registered. The names listed made my stomach twist. Daniel Carter. And the older man. Business partners. I felt physically sick. He's starting a company? Emma nodded. Without us. Without telling us. Without even mentioning it. The pieces clicked together. The consulting fees. The secret meetings. The documents. The disappearing weekends. Everything suddenly made sense. At least, I thought it did. My son wasn't in trouble. He wasn't struggling. He wasn't protecting us. He was building a future that didn't include us. And somehow that realization hurt even more. I felt invisible. Forgotten. Disposable. For months I had worried about him. For months I had defended him. And all along he had been hiding an entirely different life. That was the moment I broke. I walked directly across the ballroom. Straight toward him. The music faded into background noise. People turned to watch. Richard called my name. I didn't stop. Daniel looked up. Confused. Then concerned. Mom? I stood in front of him. My voice trembled. How long? His face went pale. What? How long have you been lying to me? The room seemed to freeze. Daniel glanced toward the older man. Then back at me. Mom, not here. No. Years of hurt poured out. Not here? Not now? Then when? After another lie? Another secret meeting? His expression collapsed. People were openly staring now. Executives. Managers. Employees. Everyone. You think I'm stupid because I'm a housewife? The words hit him like a slap. Mom. You think I don't see what's happening? Tears filled my eyes. Months of lies. Months of secrets. And now I discover you're building an entire company behind our backs. Daniel looked devastated. But I couldn't stop. Not anymore. You made me feel ashamed tonight. His eyes filled with tears. Yet somehow that only made me angrier. Because guilty people cry too. At least that's what I believed. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then the ballroom doors opened. And every head turned. The CEO had arrived. A powerful man whose photograph appeared regularly in business magazines. People immediately stepped aside. The room fell silent. I expected him to walk straight toward Daniel. Instead, he walked directly toward me. Then he smiled warmly. And said 7 words that changed everything. Good evening, ma'am. We've been hoping you'd come. The entire room stared. Including my son. Including me. Then the CEO looked at Daniel and said something even more shocking. "Is it time to tell her?" Daniel began crying. Real tears. The kind I had never seen before. And in that moment, I realized I had misunderstood everything. My entire world stopped. The CEO stood in front of me. The ballroom was silent. Hundreds of people watched as confusion, embarrassment, and fear collided inside my chest. I looked at Daniel. Then at the CEO. Then back at Daniel again. Neither of them spoke. The CEO finally smiled gently. "Perhaps we should sit down." My heart pounded. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear whatever came next. Because every explanation I could imagine still felt like betrayal. Daniel wiped his eyes. His hands were trembling. For the first time all evening. He looked less like a successful executive and more like the little boy who used to run into my arms after a nightmare. The CEO placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Go ahead." Daniel swallowed hard. Then looked directly at me. "Mom." His voice cracked. "I need you to let me finish before you say anything." The fear in his eyes unsettled me. I nodded. The ballroom remained completely silent. Daniel took a deep breath. 3 years ago, I found something in the attic. I frowned. "The attic?" He nodded. "A box." Suddenly my stomach tightened. I remembered that box. Old photographs. Letters. School papers. Dreams I had buried decades ago. Daniel continued. There were college acceptance letters. My pulse stopped. I had never shown those letters to anyone. Not even Richard. The CEO quietly stepped back, allowing Daniel to tell the story himself. I learned that Mom was accepted into one of the best business schools in the country. Tears immediately filled my eyes. I hadn't thought about those letters in years. Not because I forgot. Because remembering hurt too much. I learned she gave it up. The room remained frozen. Daniel looked around at the executives. Then back at me. She left school when Grandpa got sick. I lowered my eyes. The memories came flooding back. Hospital bills. Late-night jobs. Fear. Sacrifice. Then marriage. Children. Life. One dream after another quietly placed on a shelf. Daniel continued. Then I learned she gave up another opportunity. Richard looked confused. What opportunity? Daniel smiled sadly. The accounting firm. Richard's face turned white. Because he remembered. 40 years earlier, I'd been offered an entry-level position at a respected firm. I never accepted. Not because I wasn't capable. Because childcare cost more than the salary. The family needed stability. So I stayed home. Nobody forced me. But nobody truly understood the cost either. Daniel's tears returned. Mom sacrificed every dream she had so the rest of us could chase ours. The room was completely still. Some employees were already wiping away tears. But I still didn't understand. What did any of this have to do with the secrets? The lies? The meetings? The CEO? Then Daniel answered. I couldn't stop thinking about it. His voice shook. 4 months. He looked down. I realized something horrible. My chest tightened. What? Daniel stared at me. I had spent years celebrating everyone else's success. His tears fell freely now. But I never celebrated yours. The words hit me harder than any insult ever could. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Daniel continued. The secret meetings weren't about me. I stared. The consulting fees weren't for me. My confusion deepened. The company registration wasn't for me. Then he reached into his jacket and removed a folder. The same type of folder I had seen during all those mysterious meetings. The same folder that had fueled months of suspicion. Slowly he handed it to me. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a business plan. A complete business plan. Professional. Detailed. Polished. At the top was a company name. Then I saw something that made me gasp. Beneath the company name was another title. Founder. Margaret Carter. My name. I stared at it, unable to process what I was seeing. The room disappeared. The sounds disappeared. Everything disappeared except those two words. My name. Founder. Daniel smiled through tears. You always loved financial planning. I couldn't speak. You always loved helping people organize their finances. Still I couldn't speak. You always said if life had gone differently, you would have opened your own consulting business. My knees nearly gave out. Because I had said that. Years ago. One random evening. I never imagined anyone remembered. But Daniel had remembered. Every word. Every dream. Every sacrifice. The CEO stepped forward. His expression was filled with respect. Your son approached me almost a year ago. I looked at him. He asked if I would mentor someone. I blinked. Who? The CEO laughed softly. You. Fresh tears flooded my eyes. The CEO continued. He spent months researching licenses, certifications, startup costs, office locations, marketing plans, and training programs. I looked at Daniel. Speechless. The CEO smiled. He wasn't building a company for himself. Then he pointed toward me. He was building one for you. The ballroom erupted into stunned whispers. I covered my mouth. My entire body shook. Every clue. Every secret. Every suspicious meeting. Every receipt. Every phone call. Every absence. None of it had been betrayal. It had been love. A love so deep that my son had spent an entire year secretly trying to return the dreams I had sacrificed for him. The guilt hit me instantly. Like a wave. I remembered accusing him. Following him. Questioning him. Embarrassing him. And worst of all, believing the worst about him. Daniel stepped closer. His voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry for what I said tonight. Tears streamed down his face. I wanted people to think the surprise was completely normal. I shook my head. No. He nodded. I was nervous. His voice cracked. And I said the stupidest thing I've ever said. The ballroom laughed softly through tears. Then Daniel took my hands. Mom. His voice broke completely. I know everyone calls you a housewife. I looked into his eyes. But I've never thought you were just a housewife. The room was silent again. Daniel squeezed my hands. You built every success our family has. People began crying openly. Including me. Then he said the words I'll carry for the rest of my life. You gave up your dreams so we could have ours. His voice trembled. Now it's our turn to give one back. I collapsed into his arms. For several seconds neither of us could stop crying. Neither could Richard. Or Emma. Or half the ballroom. Months later, I opened the consulting business. At 59 years old. The CEO became an advisor. Daniel became my biggest supporter. Emma handled marketing. Richard answered phones whenever I needed help. And for the first time in decades, I wasn't living someone else's dream. I was living my own. Today, framed on my office wall, hangs a simple quote. A quote Daniel gave me on opening day. It reads, being a housewife never meant she had no ambitions. It meant she loved her family enough to put them first. And every time I read it, I remember something important. Sometimes the people we believe have hurt us the most. are secretly carrying the weight of loving us the deepest. And sometimes the greatest success isn't building a company. It's building a family that never forgets your sacrifices.